What's up, guys? Welcome to another Destiny gameplay video. In this video, I'm really just going to share some of my thoughts and opinions on the PvP experience overall in Destiny. Kind of where I see it maybe going, some of the things that I would kind of hope to see change down the road. But I just uploaded a video on Skirmish. If you're interested in playing that playlist and you kind of want some tips and tricks for that, feel free to check that video out. And then I just had some extra footage from some of the games that I'd played recently. So I figured I'd just throw some of this in here, including this awesome space magic. I love getting that medal. It's like my favorite thing in the world. And this pulse rifle, the Syzygy, is just fantastic in PvP. It's like it was made for PvP. I love it so much. I'm really kind of bummed about the pulse rifle buff that's supposed to come out this week sometime. So I feel like I went from being a special snowflake running around with the pulse rifle to now everyone's going to be using them, and I'm not going to be special anymore, and it makes me sad because, you know, I like that feeling. I'm being entirely sarcastic, by the way. I hope you picked up on that sarcastic vibe. But anyways, the overall PvP experience in Destiny. Some of the things I would like to see. You know, I was browsing the Destiny Reddit forum today and saw a forum post on something I've been thinking about for a while now. One of the things I'd really love to see, and apparently some others agree. Here's another space magic. No, this isn't the space magic, is it? No, it's close. Anyways. Apparently other people agree this would be a good thing if we had some preset loadouts that we could customize, and maybe when you pull up, you know, your ghost, you could have a way of cycling through some of the loadouts that you've set up already. I would love to do that because I find myself, I switch up my loadout all the time in PvP depending on, you know, I'll go into a situation with, you know, a scout rifle and a sniper rifle, and then I'll find that these guys that I'm playing against are all kind of brawlers using shotguns and fusion rifles, very close quarters oriented, so I kind of have to adjust. So then I have to take out my Obsidian Mind Helmet, I got to swap in the Claws of Amkara, and then I got to swap out my scout rifle for something else, probably an AR or a hand cannon. You know, it just kind of takes a while to do all that. So I wish I could sort of preset some of my loadouts, maybe even if I just had 3 to choose from. Man, that would be so helpful if I could just swap on the fly like that, you know, in between spawns. That would be kind of the creme de la creme. I would love that. The second thing that I think really needs to be addressed if PvP is going to be heavily invested in and it's going to be taken seriously in Destiny, I think one thing that definitely needs to change is the reward system. It's so one-sided, you know. If you really just want to actually get something out of your time invested right now, most people, if they're in it for the loot, they're like, hands down, I'm going to go do a raid, or I'm going to go do a nightfall, or I'm going to farm the strike playlist. Let's be honest, if you farm the Vanguard Rock Strike playlist for an hour, you're probably going to walk out of that with, you know, a dozen blue engrams at least, and maybe 2 to 3 legendary engrams. If you play the Crucible for an hour, you might have 1 blue engram and some crappy blue items that you've just dismantled because they are of no worth to you. So you just get a couple of materials and a blue engram for an hour spent in the Crucible. That seems to me to be utterly ridiculous. Now, I love this game and I love the creativity and the time invested in this game. I think it's a fantastic game, or else I wouldn't spend so much time playing it. But I don't know who thought up the reward system for the Crucible, because it makes no sense whatsoever. It's just so one-sided. Why would you ever spend your time in PvP if you want to get stuff out of the time that you invest in the game? Right now, the only reason I play a crap ton of PvP is because I just genuinely love PvP. But that's not going to keep me hooked forever. At some point, I'm going to want to actually get something out of the time that I spend in PvP. Just to put this into perspective for you, I have played over 1,000 Crucible matches to date. And I have had 2 exotic items drop. One of them was the No Land Beyond. So that's not a really good return on your investment. Not by a long shot. So obviously I think that the reward system needs to be tweaked, and I think that's an understatement. I think it needs to be entirely revamped and reimagined. I think that the modifiers for your chances ought to be affected by your performance in a game. I think that if you and I don't just mean KD or volume of kills. I mean objective-related medals and points that you get. I think that captures should factor into it if you're playing control. I think that revives, if you're playing skirmish, should factor into it. I think that precision kills. I think all the things that point to you being a good player overall, I think that those things ought to have really small modifiers so that the better you do in a game, the more points that you capture and kills you get and revives you get, etc. I feel like those things ought to stack up and slowly increase your chances when that game ends to get a decent drop. Now, that doesn't mean that the guy on bottom can't get Galahorn like in the past, but it just means that the people who perform the best ought to get rewarded just a little bit more at least. I think that there ought to be those modifiers so that my performance can affect what I'm getting out of the Crucible. I think that it should be performance-based. Everything else in the game, you can get carried to getting good rewards. I'm not saying that that happens all the time. I'm just saying that, it can happen. You can do absolutely nothing for your team and get an exotic or legendary engram. In fact, the other day, I was doing some Vanguard Rock strikes, and it was on Valis to Arc, right? And about 5 minutes into the match, one of the guys goes AFK all the way to the end, right? And at the ending screen, after we finally kill Valis to Arc, which takes forever because he's a bullet sponge, and on top of that, we're doing it with 2 men instead of 3, which does dramatically affect the amount of time it takes to kill that guy and Rocket's McDoucheface. And when we finally dropped him, we get to the Carnage report at the end of the game, and I had, it was like 200 kills, something in that vicinity. The other guy was, he was close to 100, but the guy who was AFK had like 10 kills. And lo and behold, this guy gets a legendary engram, and I got a blue helmet and a blue engram. And so it just, but that's kind of the way the cookie crumbles sometimes in the Vanguard Strike playlist. But I don't think that Crucible should be the same way. I think that, yeah, you could have a chance of getting good stuff if you're on the bottom. That's okay. I understand that. I understand that even the fat kid gets a trophy sometimes. I'm not opposed to that. But I do think that if you perform better consistently, then you should, over time, have more to show for your efforts than the other guys in Crucible. Crucible is all about your personal performance and your performance as a team on top of that, but it's all about being better than the other person. So in a game type that's all about being better than the other player, don't you think that the person who does better ought to be rewarded better? That just seems to, be common sense to me. So overall, I think that the reward system needs to be revamped. So there's that. Now, in terms of class balancing and weapon balancing, this is something that people talk about all the time on the forums. In fact, if you take 5 minutes to look at the forums, you'll see that a really good portion of the posts are about nerfs and buffs. People want this to do better and they want this to do worse. So you see people saying Vex Mythoclast is OP, nerf it. The Thorn is OP, nerf it. This is OP, nerf it. The Hunter Supers are OP, so nerf them. Shotguns are OP, so nerf them. Pulse rifles suck, so buff them. Right? This is what people are talking about on the forums consistently. In my opinion, after spending over 1,000 matches in the Crucible, my opinion is pretty simple. I don't think that there's a lot of balancing issues. Maybe I'm in the minority there, but I don't think that any class has an advantage over another class. I think that there are situations where they have an advantage. I think that, for example, in skirmish, when there aren't such a high volume of enemies, obviously being a hunter would be a better super to have in those circumstances, because you can initiate your golden gun, get a kill on a guy, and then run around the corner and find another guy, kill him, and then keep pushing forward and find the third guy and kill him. As opposed to the Nova Bomb, which you could, in skirmish, you're usually just dropping it on one person, so you get one kill with your super. So I think that there are situations where certain classes have the advantage, and I think that's exactly how a game like this, an RPG, I think it's exactly how that should play out. I think that, you should have to find out what your class is best at. Find out what those situations are, and then you need to intentionally create those situations. Seek those situations out, try and synthesize those situations so that you can have the advantage. That's what being a good PvP player is all about. So those are some of my rants about PvP in general in this game. Feel free to leave in the comments section anything that you think ought to be changed or addressed. So thanks for stopping by, guys. I really appreciate the support. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at TheTrueVanguard. Check out my Twitch stream on Mondays and Fridays. Thanks, guys.